There's a moment in every fading connection where something shifts and you can't unfeel it. It's not a fight. It's not even something they say. It's a silence, a pause that lasts just a little too long. A touch that doesn't linger like it used to. An I love you that suddenly feels empty. If you've ever laid next to someone who felt a million miles away, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This video isn't about the obvious signs, yelling, cheating, walking out the door. No, it's about what happens first. The first two subtle, soul-shaking changes that show up before the breakup. Before the excuses. Before they finally admit what you've already started to feel in your gut. Because here's the truth. People rarely fall out of love overnight. It begins with small shifts, soft betrayals, quiet exits, all hiding in plain sight. And if you know what to look for, you'll stop gaslighting yourself into thinking you're overreacting. You're not too emotional. You're not imagining things. You're picking up on the vibration that love is starting to leave the room. So stay with me. Because once you recognize these first two behaviors, everything that confused you will start to make sense. And better yet, you'll learn how to take your power back before you're left trying to heal from a breakup that happened long before they ever said the words. Let's talk about it. Most people think love disappears with a dramatic exit. Someone storms out, someone cheats, or someone says, I don't love you anymore. But that's rarely how it actually happens. Falling out of love is often quiet, gradual, unspoken. It starts in the mind, not the heart. At first, there's a shift in how they perceive you. The things they once admired now feel like annoyances. The quirks they used to find endearing become irritations. And the connection that once felt effortless begins to feel like a responsibility, a weight, a chore. Psychologically, falling out of love isn't just emotional detachment. It's cognitive dissonance. The brain starts rewriting the story. It tells them things like, maybe this isn't what I want anymore, or I don't feel the same. And instead of communicating, they start withdrawing, not just physically, but mentally. They listen less. They stop showing curiosity. They disengage from conversations. And the worst part, you notice it, but they deny it, which leaves you confused, doubting your intuition. This mental shift also affects behavior in subtle ways. They become less generous with their energy, less patient, less excited to be around you, and their focus drifts elsewhere to work, friends, distractions, or even fantasies about a different life without you in it. The psychology of falling out of love is also linked to emotional unavailability. When someone begins to feel emotionally overwhelmed, insecure, or unfulfilled, they might not know how to handle that discomfort, so they detach. It's a self-protection mechanism, but to the person on the receiving end, it just feels like rejection. And that hurts more because there's no explanation, just distance. What's especially painful is that this process can happen even when no one did anything wrong. People evolve, circumstances change, compatibility fades, and sometimes love isn't lost all at once. It just erodes slowly until one day it's barely there. Understanding this process helps you stop blaming yourself. It gives you clarity, or most importantly, it reminds you that someone pulling away is not always a reflection of your worth. Sometimes it's just their inability to hold what love actually requires. And that's what we're unpacking in the rest of this video. One of the first and often most confusing signs that someone is falling out of love is emotional withdrawal. It doesn't come with fireworks. It's not loud or obvious. In fact, that's what makes it so heartbreaking. It creeps in quietly, often unnoticed, until it becomes impossible to ignore. You'll feel it before you can explain it. They're there, but not with you. They respond, but they're not really present. Conversations start to feel like routines. Moments that used to bring laughter or intimacy now feel flat. And when you reach out emotionally with affection, vulnerability, or even just excitement, their energy doesn't meet yours. It's like throwing your heart into a void. That's emotional withdrawal. At its core, this is a disconnection from intimacy. Not just physical, though that often follows, but mental and emotional closeness. The willingness to share, to listen, to be engaged and emotionally available. When someone begins pulling away emotionally, they stop offering those small daily affirmations that make a relationship feel alive. The "how was your day" turns into silence. The "I miss you" becomes less frequent, then disappears altogether. Even eye contact, once lingering and full of affection, becomes fleeting or avoidant. It's important to understand emotional withdrawal is not always malicious. Often, the person doesn't even fully realize they're doing it. It's a defense mechanism, a way to distance themselves from the emotional labor of the relationship without having to confront it directly. Instead of facing their shifting feelings head-on, they begin to retreat piece by piece until there's barely anything left to hold on to. This kind of detachment can feel like emotional starvation. You start wondering if you're too needy, too emotional, too intense. You internalize the distance as your fault. But here's the truth: emotional withdrawal is their choice, not your deficiency. Love requires presence, and when someone begins to check out emotionally, they're no longer nourishing the relationship, they're slowly starving it. And what makes this stage especially dangerous is that it doesn't always come with conflict. In fact, sometimes they become more agreeable. They stop arguing. They stop pushing back. They just go quiet. And because there's no drama, it tricks you into thinking things are okay. But silence isn't always peace. Sometimes it's the sound of someone giving up. You might try to fix it. You might become more affectionate, ask more questions, make more plans, try harder to reconnect. But the more you reach out, the more it feels like they're drifting away. And that feeling, that aching imbalance, can begin to break you down long before the relationship officially ends. Recognizing emotional withdrawal early is powerful. It helps you shift from chasing their attention to observing their effort. Are they leaning in or checking out? Are they emotionally present, or are you doing all the emotional work? If you feel like you're constantly begging for connection, like you're talking but not being heard, loving but not being loved back, pay attention. Emotional withdrawal is rarely the beginning of repair. It's almost always the beginning of the end, unless it's acknowledged, addressed, and actively worked through by both people. But here's the thing: no one tells you. You don't have to wait until they fully leave to validate your pain. If someone has emotionally abandoned the relationship, you're allowed to grieve that. You're allowed to name it. You're allowed to walk away, not just from what it's become, but from what it refuses to be. Because you deserve more than someone who's just there. You deserve someone who chooses to show up fully, emotionally, consistently. And in the next section, we'll talk about the second behavior, one that hides even better than this. Let's get into it. When someone starts to pull away, it often leaves you in a state of quiet panic. You begin analyzing every word, every text, every delay in response. You ask yourself if you did something wrong, if you said too much, if you asked for too much. But here's the truth that most people don't realize. When someone pulls away, it says everything about where their heart and mind are, and very little about your worth. Pulling away isn't random. It's intentional, even when it's unconscious. It's a response to discomfort, avoidance, or internal conflict. Sometimes people pull away because they no longer feel what they used to, but they don't know how to say that without hurting you. So instead of being honest, they retreat quietly, subtly. They hope you'll get the hint. And maybe if they're being brutally honest with themselves, they're hoping you'll be the one to end it, so they don't have to be the villain. Other times, pulling away is about fear. Fear of commitment, fear of vulnerability, fear of being truly seen. As soon as things get too real, too deep, too emotionally intense, they start stepping back. Not because they don't care, but because they're afraid of caring too much. Because to them, closeness equals risk. So they retreat to feel safe again. The problem is, that leaves you feeling abandoned. And sometimes people pull away not because something's wrong in the relationship, but because something's unresolved within them. Maybe they're emotionally exhausted. Maybe they're battling self-worth issues, uncertainty, or even guilt about not being able to love you the way they know you deserve. But instead of processing it, they simply shut down. They become distant, avoidant, cold. Whatever the reason, one thing stays the same. When someone pulls away, they are communicating something, even in their silence. It means their emotional investment has shifted. It means they're no longer showing up in the same way they once did. It means they are creating space, distance, so they don't have to deal with the weight of honesty. But the most painful part, when they pull away, and pretend everything is fine when they give you just enough to keep you hanging on, but never enough to feel secure. That emotional breadcrumbing is not affection. It's avoidance. So what should you do? You pause. You stop chasing. You stop filling in the silence with your own assumptions. And instead, you start observing. Are they making space for you in their life? Are they checking in with consistency, care, curiosity? Or are you always the one initiating, asking, hoping? Pulling away is often the beginning of emotional closure. The part of the story they've started writing in their head that haven't had the courage to read out loud. And deep down you can feel it. That gut feeling. It's not paranoia. It's insight. Trust it. Here's the part that's hardest to accept. Sometimes love doesn't leave with a slammed door. It slips out quietly through delayed replies, missed calls, and busy texts. And you're left wondering why you feel alone when you're technically still together. But that's the moment you decide you're not going to beg for clarity from someone who's already shown you confusion. You deserve more than the ache of unanswered questions. You deserve someone whose energy doesn't shift when things get hard. Someone who doesn't retreat when love asks for consistency. So when someone pulls away, don't just wait for them to come back. Pay attention to what their absence reveals. Because sometimes the space they create isn't meant to be filled. It's meant to show you where you stand. And in the next part, we'll dive into how these subtle signs evolve into full-blown avoidance and what to do when it starts becoming a pattern. If emotional withdrawal is the quiet fade, passive avoidance is the silent wall that follows. It's what happens when someone doesn't want to face the truth. Not with you and not even with themselves. And instead of being direct, they dodge, they delay, they disappear in plain sight. Passive avoidance isn't loud or confrontational. In fact, it's often dressed in politeness, in excuses, in "I've just been really busy." They still respond, but the responses are shorter. They still show up, but with less energy. They still say they care, but their actions start to blur that line. It's not that they vanish completely. They just stop leaning in. Slowly, subtly, they start avoiding the moments where connection might happen. They stop making plans. They stop asking questions. They stop initiating conversations. And maybe the most painful part, they stop being curious about you. They avoid meaningful discussions, especially the kind that might bring up real emotions, real needs, real accountability. Conversations about the relationship become too heavy. They say they don't want to argue or they just don't know what to say. But deep down, they're avoiding the reality that something has shifted. This isn't laziness, it's intentional. It's an emotional exit strategy, a way to back out of the relationship without actually walking out the door. They don't want the guilt of hurting you. So instead, they choose the slow fade, hoping you'll be the one to finally say this isn't working. Passive avoidance shows up in other ways too. They might cancel plans more frequently, take longer to reply to texts, show up emotionally flat when they're with you. They might still post online, hang out with friends, go on with their life, but somehow their connection to you feels like it's drifting further into the background. It's not about time, it's about presence, and theirs is no longer with you. Here's what's most dangerous about passive avoidance. It creates false hope. Because they're still around, it's easy to convince yourself it's just a phase, that they're tired, that work is stressing them out, that they just need space. But deep down, you can feel it. They're not just avoiding conversations. They're avoiding you, the emotional you, the you that needs reassurance, connection, and love. This kind of avoidance chips away at your confidence. You start shrinking yourself to keep the peace. You stop bringing things up, afraid you'll push them further away. You silence your own needs in the hope that maybe, just maybe, they'll come back around if you give them enough time and space. But love doesn't grow in avoidance, it grows in presence, in truth, in showing up even when it's uncomfortable. So what does passive avoidance really mean? It means they're no longer emotionally invested enough to confront what's broken. It means they're choosing the path of least resistance, even if that path leaves you confused and emotionally drained. And most importantly, it means the responsibility of emotional labor has fallen entirely on you. But here's what you need to remember. You are not too much for wanting clarity. You are not wrong for craving connection. And you are not meant to chase someone who's actively avoiding the intimacy you're ready to offer. When someone passively avoids you, that is a choice. And if they're choosing not to show up, you're allowed to choose yourself. You're allowed to stop waiting. You're allowed to stop hoping. You're allowed to let go of the version of them you once loved and face the version that's standing in front of you now. Because silence is also a message. And in love, sometimes no response is the response. In the next part, we'll explore how all of this starts to show up in the smallest daily behaviors and how to read between the lines before it's too late. Some of the most heartbreaking moments in a relationship don't come with screaming matches or sudden goodbyes. They come in silence, in tiny changes, in moments that seem so small, you almost convince yourself they don't matter. But over time, they start to add up and they start to hurt. Because when someone begins to emotionally distance themselves, it rarely happens all at once. They don't usually walk out the door overnight. Instead, they slowly start walking away without ever taking a physical step. And the scariest part, you can feel it, even if they never say a word. It's in the way they stop reaching for your hand, the way they stop texting you good morning without a reminder, the way their responses become colder, shorter, or just delayed. You ask them how their day was, and they say fine. You try to tell them something exciting, and they barely react. You share something vulnerable, and they change the subject or scroll through their phone while you're talking. These subtle shifts in energy might seem insignificant at first, but they're actually powerful signals that something is changing beneath the surface. They start spending more time just needing space, more nights out with friends, more distractions that conveniently keep them from having to sit with you, talk with you, feel with you. It's not about being busy. It's about not making you a priority anymore. And it shows. Maybe they stopped doing those little thoughtful things they used to do without thinking. Bringing you your favorite snack, checking in during the day, remembering what's important to you. Those things don't stop because they forgot. They stop because their emotional investment is shifting elsewhere. It's no longer natural to show up for you in those small, caring ways. Then comes the change in physical presence. They sit next to you, but feel far away. The hugs become shorter. The kisses feel less intentional. There's a lack of eye contact, or worse, the avoidance of it altogether. Their body might still be there, but the emotional warmth you once felt in their presence is gone. And then there are the unspoken decisions. They stop planning for the future. No more we should go here, or let's do that together. Conversations become rooted in the present or surface level topics with no real effort to build or dream forward. It's not because they're living in the moment. It's because they're quietly pulling away from the idea of a future with you in it. These moments feel like emotional micro-abandonments, and they leave you in limbo. You question yourself constantly. Am I imagining this? Am I being too sensitive? But your gut knows. You just haven't found the words for it yet. Here's the truth. When someone starts distancing themselves without saying a word, it's usually because they don't want to be the one to initiate a hard conversation. It's avoidance disguised as passivity. They want you to notice and maybe even make the decision for them. But silence doesn't protect your heart. It just delays the pain. So if you're noticing these subtle shifts, don't gaslight yourself into pretending they're not real. Don't wait for someone to verbally confirm the distance that their behavior has already made loud and clear. Love requires effort, presence, attention. And when those things start disappearing, it's a sign not that you're unworthy, but that the energy is no longer mutual. You deserve someone who doesn't make you question where you stand, who doesn't drift away quietly while you're still trying to hold the pieces together. Someone who communicates, who shows up, who fights for connection, even when it's uncomfortable. Because real love doesn't disappear in silence, and you shouldn't have to beg someone to speak the truth. Their actions are already screaming. Noticing the signs of someone pulling away, withdrawing emotionally, or avoiding you passively is painful, but it's also powerful, because awareness gives you a choice, and how you respond when you notice these changes can completely shift the outcome, not just of the relationship, of your self-worth. The first instinct many people have when they sense distance is to chase. You start reaching out more, asking more questions, trying to fix what feels broken. You become hyper aware of their moods, their texts, their silences. You twist yourself into emotional knots, hoping that if you just love harder, they'll come back. But here's the truth. Chasing someone who is choosing to pull away rarely brings them closer. it often pushes them further. The most powerful thing you can do in that moment is pause. Not out of fear, not out of punishment, but out of self-respect. Take a step back, not to play games, but to observe the reality of the relationship without your emotions clouding your judgment. Ask yourself, are they showing up for me the way I show up for them? Do I feel emotionally safe, seen and valued, or constantly on edge, unsure and anxious? Is this connection building me or breaking me? When someone begins to withdraw or avoid, it's not just about what they're doing, it's about what you're allowing. You cannot control their energy, but you can control how much access they have to yours. You don't have to beg, explain, or justify your need for consistency. You are allowed to expect clarity. You are allowed to want effort. If you feel the shift, name it calmly, directly, and without accusation. Say something like, I've been feeling some distance between us lately. I care about you and I value this connection, but I also need openness and consistency. Can we talk about where we're at? You don't need to come from a place of fear or insecurity. Come from truth. If they are emotionally invested, they'll meet you in that space. They'll acknowledge the shift, and they'll either reassure you with action or be honest about where they're at. But if they dismiss you, get defensive, or brush it off like you're overthinking, take note, that's not just avoidance, that's emotional immaturity. That's someone who wants the benefits of your love without the responsibility of showing up for it. Responding with strength doesn't always mean staying and fighting for the relationship. Sometimes it means choosing yourself and your peace. It means recognizing when someone's actions are no longer aligned with the love you deserve. Here's the hard truth. When someone starts pulling away, they are giving you information. You don't need to decode every word or dissect every text. You need to believe what their consistency or lack of it is telling you. And believing it doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. So instead of clinging, create space. Instead of begging, observe. Instead of proving your worth, protect it. Let their actions speak and let your boundaries answer. You are not here to convince anyone to love you. You are here to choose relationships that don't make you question whether you're lovable in the first place. Because when you respond with calm clarity and self-respect, you send a message to them and to yourself that you will no longer settle for almost, maybe, or halfway. You're holding out for whole. And anyone who can't offer that doesn't deserve the version of you that does. If there's one truth that saves you from years of heartbreak, it's this. Stop chasing unavailable love. Because the more you pursue someone who can't meet you emotionally, the further you drift from yourself. Unavailable love doesn't always look cold or cruel. Sometimes it looks warm one day and distant the next. Sometimes it comes wrapped in mixed signals, late night texts, temporary attention, and promises that never fully arrive. It keeps you on the hook with just enough to keep hoping, but never enough to feel secure. And that inconsistency, that's not chemistry, that's confusion. Love that's real doesn't require you to prove your worth over and over. It doesn't ask you to settle for breadcrumbs or silence your needs to keep the peace. Love, the kind that's healthy, deep and lasting, shows up every time, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's hard. So if someone keeps pulling away, if they keep avoiding real connection, if they keep showing you with their actions that they're not emotionally available, believe them. Don't romanticize the chase. Don't turn their lack of effort into a puzzle you think you're supposed to solve. You're not here to rescue someone from their inability to love. You are here to receive love in a way that fills, honors, and grows you. When you chase someone who doesn't want to be caught, you lose more than just time. You lose parts of yourself. Your confidence erodes. Your self-trust weakens. Your world starts revolving around someone who doesn't even know how to hold space for you. That is not love. That is emotional survival. And you don't need to survive love. You are meant to thrive in it. So take a breath, step back, ask yourself, what am I chasing? And why do I think I need to? Because the truth is, the right love won't make you chase. It will meet you where you are. It will lean in when things get hard. It will choose you. Not sometimes, not when it's convenient, but always. So don't chase unavailable love. Let it go. Let it leave. Let it teach you what you don't want so you can make room for what you do. And most importantly, start choosing yourself the way you wish they had. That's when everything changes. If you've made it this far, I want to say this. You are incredibly strong. It takes courage to face the truth, especially when the truth hurts. Recognizing that someone is pulling away and choosing not to chase is one of the most powerful, self-loving decisions you can make. You deserve love, that's clear. Love that chooses you back. Love that makes you feel safe, not second-guessing. And the fact that you're here, watching this, already shows that you're ready to stop settling for anything less. So what happens next? You take your power back, not by trying to fix or chase or prove, but by redirecting that energy inward. Heal the parts of you that were conditioned to fight for someone who barely fights for you. Rebuild your self-worth, not on how someone treats you, but on how you treat yourself. Maybe that means setting stronger boundaries. Maybe it means walking away from something that's no longer aligned. Or maybe it just means giving yourself permission to grieve the version of love you hoped it would be and then letting it go. This isn't the end of your story. This is the moment it begins to turn. And when you start choosing peace over confusion, clarity over chaos, and self-respect over rejection, the love you've been looking for won't need to be chased. It will recognize you because you'll already be showing up as someone who knows their worth. Thank you for being here with me today. If this resonated with you, don't forget to like, comment, and share your story below. Someone else might need to hear it too. Until next time, protect your heart, trust your gut, and never settle for half-loved. You deserve